I just want to say thank you, Nancy, for being with us. And Nancy is a registered professional engineer and licensed geologist. She joined Loudoun County Department of Transportation and Capital Infrastructure in May 2021, and in December 2022, serving as in an acting capacity, she was made director of the department. She's had prior experience in Maryland with WSP, and she's also had experience out in the state of Washington State Department of Transportation for 26 years, I'm sure, in a variety of roles. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll post your bio with the presentation today. But I turn it over to you. If you can, let's try to group any questions we have for afterward, unless it's a clarification question.
Great. Well, thank you for having me, and that was a great introduction. Just by way, a little bit of additional information about my background. I did start in this field as a geologist, and like I said, Washington State. It was where I graduated from high school, but I was a Navy brat, so I lived all over the place, including Maryland and Virginia a few times. So a lot of family on this side of the country as well. My husband's from Maryland. So once our kids were out of the house and my parents were gone, unfortunately, we decided to move closer to them in Maryland. So that's where we are. We built a house next door to my in-laws, and that's how I got here. So I was in the so 26 years.
So you went back to work after you bought the house next to the in-laws.
I had to get a job here before we could move. So I'm one of the key wage earners with our family. But I'll just mention this just briefly because it's like the highlight of my career from a geologist standpoint. I was hired by the Department of Transportation to help with the location work, so the geotechnical location work for the new Mount St. Helens Highway. All right, so it was post-1980, and the federal government had a lot of infusion of cash to rebuild a state highway that goes up to a viewpoint. If you've ever been in that area, a lot of people don't think about going to visit Mount St. Helens. They think about maybe Mount Rainier or the Olympic Peninsula or the islands. If the weather's good, it's a great place to go. So there's a new highway, 26 miles, and I was with me and a geotechnical drill crew. We literally had keys to the monument. There was no road. We had, we'd have a bulldozer out there where we'd pull a rig in and drill holes doing the location design work. So it was really a once in a lifetime sort of experience. So that's how I got my start with the Department of Transportation. And that was the highlight. From a geologist standpoint, you really can't beat that. I did a lot of landslide fixes, and, after a few storms, that just becomes old. And so I got into more of the traditional transportation design side of things, mostly design. And I kind of went back and forth through my career managing very large projects. I was kind of a specialist in managing Washington State has some very big projects, and I was one of the managers of one of those big projects, and went back and forth between that and kind of senior leadership roles with the agency. So. Good career, and just very varied. I worked in planning, worked in design, worked in project management. It was a great career with them. But I'm very happy to be here, and I have to say that working at the local government level is my favorite of all. Because, after working on those projects and the policy work, sometimes it can take decades to see the results of what you've been working on. It's very rewarding to work here at Loudoun County and see things and feel like you're actually making changes and actually having a positive effect for people almost every day. So it's a lot of fun. All right, so I do have a presentation here. So Department of Transportation and Capital Infrastructure, I think you guys hear probably pretty regularly from folks at the county, right? And you probably know my predecessor, Joe Crowbeth. So, Joe is in a new position. And darn him for leaving, right? Because I loved working for him as his deputy. So darn him for leaving into a new position. But it was only temporary when he first left. And I was the acting director, and then he just stayed, right? So in any case, the Department of Transportation and Capital Infrastructure has changed a little bit, slightly, and I'll get into that here just briefly. We have 4 divisions, and we had 4 divisions under Joe, but the 4 divisions have changed slightly since Joe left. So we have a group that does transportation planning and traffic engineering. We have a transportation capital projects, and I'm here to talk a lot about that today. We also have a facilities and public infrastructure capital projects group. So, all the parks and all the things that we build for the county get designed and built with my group. And then what's new to our group is the space planning and renovation group. And so that they just recently joined with our group. At the same time, we moved, and this is why it's kind of relevant for you guys, perhaps, the transit services group. Just after the Silver Line opened, that group moved to our Department of General Services. And that was about the same time that I came in as the director. So at the time that they moved to General Services, and kind of acknowledging that it's more of an operations-focused group, we still work very closely with that group on the planning and policy side of things for transit. So we still have that close coordination with them. But since they're primarily operations-focused, they're now with our DGS group. And so what used to be that space planning, and that's basically the interior design, the renovations of our buildings, are now with my group. And that's really a recognition of, we are still building a lot of new facilities, but we anticipate as the county matures over the next decade or two that the focus will shift into a lot more heavy renovation work as well. And since we're very project management oriented, it made sense to shift them to my group. So I'll just give a little bit of a plug for our website. I am going to touch on a few of the projects that I know that you're interested in here, but we do have a great website. And so if you haven't visited it, a lot more detail is available, including better maps at this website. We also have a quarterly report. We do a quarterly report for our board that gives the latest update on where we are with our project delivery. So updates to any scope, schedule, and budget. That's all wrapped into our quarterly report. All right. So thank you for providing me with a few projects that I know that you're interested in. And I'll say before I get started that, as with any newish job, there are always a subset of things that kind of suck the oxygen out of everything I do, right? So a couple of these I will know much more about than a couple of the others. And so I'll say, if you have any questions about these that I can't answer today, I can get back to you with that. But I can give you an overview and a lot more information on some of these. So the first is the Shellhorn Road, MWA property to Moran Road. The scope of and budget for this project was originally included in our fiscal year 2021 CIP, Capital Improvement Program, under the name Shellhorn Road, Loudoun County Parkway to Randolph Drive. So I don't know if any of you were ever tracking on that. This is that same project. It was resegmented to administer more efficiently in the fiscal year 22 CIP development. And this is essentially constructing a 4-lane roadway. We're currently about 90% design right now. So the design phase is scheduled for fiscal year 23 and 24. Land acquisition the following 2 years, 25, 26, with construction starting in 27. Okay. I know you're holding your questions, but I can also answer. So Old Ox Road and Dulles Summit Court. This is part of our intersection improvement program, which has been in the works for several years. So this is recognizing, we had 2 sort of programs that were developed a few years back where Mr. York, I don't know if it was in your time on the board, but it was, so basically recognizing that there are kind of smaller projects can really focus on intersection improvements. We also have another program that's focused on sidewalks and trails. And so this project is one of the first batches of intersection improvements that were identified through that program, where all of our kind of intersections were prioritized for improvements. And this is one of the first batch. This will convert the intersection here at Dulles Summit Court into a right in, right out, and left in only configuration. So no left turn out. Okay, and so that's really a safety improvement when you're looking to make improvements at intersections. One of the first things that we do is we look at what the conflict points are, and one of the biggest conflict points are, of course, left turns. And so it's always kind of a trade-off between the access and the safety. And in this case, it's not like we're going to totally right in, right out. We're still preserving the left-in movement, which is often important to the adjacent property owners. But the right out will have to be out of another access point. And this one is about 90% design plans. Next, I have West Wind Drive, Loudoun County Parkway to Old Ox Road. So this project starts at West Wind Drive and Loudoun County Parkway, basically Loudoun County Parkway to Old Ox Road is the extent. The scope of this one includes widening the existing roadway, construction of a new 4-lane median divided roadway. There's going to be a sidewalk on one side and a shared use path on the other, and a new bridge over Broad Run. The interesting thing about this one is, at least for us, it's not interesting. One of the oxygen suckers on this is NOAA is one of the adjacent property owners. They have a building there, and developing road projects, it is not a low impact sort of activity, right? We often have challenges with adjacent property owners and impacts and regulatory agencies. Having one of those regulatory agencies right next to a project is definitely a challenge. I've had my staff say they hate water, and they're NOAA, right? But to quote them, quote, "We want no more water on our property." So what we are doing to get around that, to facilitate a resolution with them on this one, is we have had to fund a consultant on our dime to work on their behalf to review our project. So that's how we are getting through that process.
Nancy, if it's any consolation, I was airport manager when we moved them to that location.
Oh, were you?
They're a gem to work with. We went to 100% design, and then they took 50% of it and redid it. And we paid for it.
Wow. All right.
They are no fun.
A gem in the opposite sense.
Oh, God.
In the sense of the pressure and heat.
It was easier to move 2 cemeteries than it was to do the
and that's saying something. Yep. All right. So on this one, the schedule is we have design for fiscal year 23 and 24, land acquisition 24 through 26, construction 27, starting in 27. Sterling Boulevard extension. So this will become a 4-lane urban major connector with divided median, turn lanes, shared use path on one side of the road. So this is an old project. It's been around a while. It's a legacy revenue share project. This is basically a piece of it. So this constructs Sterling Boulevard from Pacific Boulevard to Moran Road. I think the schedule's right here. Yeah, it is. Right-of-way phase completed late fall.
It's kind of one of those projects that was an afterthought after they built up the industrial buildings, and I think we got to get this road connected. So glad it's finally moving forward.
All right, so this is not one you asked about, but I'm including it because we are actively working on this one. Route 50 Northern Collector Road. This is still in the planning phase. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute that is just our current concept of what this may look like. This road, well, basically, the purpose of this road is to take some of the pressure off Route 50. And, basically it's going from Tall Cedars Parkway over here. I think the design of this and the concept of this has evolved since we've had it. Originally, it was supposed to come over here and connect, but 5th runway has impacted some of that. So now we have it starting here at Tall Cedars Parkway and connecting over here by the Air and Space Museum. Of course, the unique thing about this is, a special thing about this is, here's the Loudoun Fairfax County line. So actually, most of this new roadway is in Fairfax. So this is in all of Loudoun County's plans. And we've had kind of a lack of traction on the Fairfax County side until just recently. So it is not currently in Fairfax's long-range plan, but we are, so there are some renewed conversations both at the staff level and at the supervisor level that are starting to happen around this. I think one of the key things that has happened is MWA's kind of own planning is, I think, starting to see the advantage of some of this. So much traffic comes in and out of Stonecroft here, and their future plans here. This runway protection zone is planned at the end of the 5th runway that would go out this way. And so, we're trying to avoid that. Basically, most of this alignment is on MWA property, and so we've had ongoing discussions with MWA about that, trying to avoid impacts, but also it would be a no-go for the project if we couldn't be on MWA property just based on land costs. So we're trying to avoid impacts as much as possible. So we've narrowed the cross-section now of the concept from what was 120 feet down to 80, and slowed down the speed to make these curves that we're kind of winding through these land uses here to avoid, impacts as much as possible, avoid a planned substation kind of thing in there, try to make the right connections, hug the property line, try to avoid that. Creating a new one thing here, Stonecroft, MWA's planning to move that because of this runway protection zone, and we think it's going to go right in here, so we're working with them on how to plan for that connection there. We're going to have a tunnel under this aircraft taxiway.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're doing the traffic studies
that's
now.
the Air and Space Museum.
Yeah, here's Air and Space here. Yep. And so they only use that sometimes, but they did ask us they required us to make a tunnel there.
So let me
And you avoid the
ask.
quarry. You avoid the quarry by doing that too.
Yeah.
So since you mentioned the 5th runway, is the county still in favor and support of the 5th runway?
I don't know that I can speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
I can ask around. Not actively. Who's working on that right now is Joe Krobeth in his planning and zoning, because he oversees planning and zoning. So,
I would be curious in
Yeah.
finding out, because I hear there's a group of citizens forming to get rid of it.
would you like me to have put in touch with you?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Because I did include a slide on the airport impact overlay district.
Okay.
Although I don't know much about it.
Okay.
But at your request, I included a nominal amount and was going to volunteer to connect you if needed. So, all right.
Is that road gonna have stoplights? Or just originally I remember Supervisor McKernan talked about, I have a dream and going from one to the other and not having to stop. But it's one of those where you kind of create this opportunity to bypass 50 to push people out. But if you end up with stoplights and intersections and slowing things down, it changes that vision.
Yeah, so still in the planning phases, we have traffic studies going on now to try to figure out intersection control. Part of it is we may have a long-term vision and a near-term vision. So some of the longer-term vision may be kind of grade separating some of these. And I know MWA wants that to be grade separated, and they just recently provided us with their traffic forecasts on what kind of freight they think is going to be coming through here for us to be able to analyze that. So we don't know whether that's going to be grade separated or not. It would kind of just depend on whether the numbers are where we think they need to be. Another one here is this one. This one we are actually, there's currently an access road here, but with the 5th runway going in, I don't think we have a definitive answer from MWA yet about whether they want to keep that. If they do, we're going to actually make that a roundabout probably. Because it's, even if they keep it, it's a relatively minor connection, and just allow that to happen. And then this one here, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of, this is really the biggie, is what's going to go on here. And so I don't have an answer for you yet, right now, on what's going to be warranted there.
Those other roads would all be behind the fence. So they
Yeah, no connections here except for Stonecroft.
Right.
And then there's this one, we're going to make a connection to Wade Drive currently, is what we're thinking.
I mean, from the
And
airport
then-
side, they'd have the fence there, except for they're ultimately gonna develop cargo down in the south.
Right.
You know, Keith, and that's the thing that again, the vision, the master plan that they're coming up with. Where is the thinking? Because this actually is a game changer.
Mhm.
You start thinking about what are the opportunities and what could we do?
Yeah.
And what happens to that 50 corridor for both, the Sully district as well as, south out through South Riding. There's a great opportunity for us as part of the airport to really make that shine.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Fairfax County is talking to you, because Matt, every time we've talked about that, I mean, this road was when I was airport manager in 2005, we were talking about it, and Fairfax, I mean, you just hit a wall.
Yeah.
You come flying down, and then just Fairfax says, the hell with you. We've got stoplights all down 50. Back it up as long as you want it.
Make it a toll road.
Well, like I said, we're starting to have conversations.
Pain's starting to hit that too.
One of the things that we're just concluding a planning phase. We do have a consultant teed up to start the NEPA phase. So with that NEPA phase, we're going to be analyzing, the no build. If we don't build this collector road, what's going to happen to 50? And so in the coming year or two, we'll be able to articulate that no build and maybe help paint a picture of why this is such an important connection.
Do you have thoughts about the cargo? If we end up with a lot of cargo in the trucks, could the roads withstand that? Would there be significant improvements, upgrades?
So I don't have a fully developed thought on that, other than if we don't do this, I feel like they're going to need to have this. If we don't do this, this is going to break down here. And so they need something here, and this seems like it's probably their best bet without building something totally on their own.
That is probably their minor problem for cargo.
Yeah.
Cargo problem is getting out of Loudoun County and beyond west.
Yeah.
So,
Connecting into 66 to go west.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, on a different sort of scale, I just threw this in here. VDOT has a project to do a couple of corridor improvements at intersections. This is being administered by VDOT. They don't have any construction funding, but I threw this in here just because it is the Route 50 corridor, and just to make you aware that VDOT does have a couple of things in the works here. And then I also thought you might be interested, it's a little farther west, North Star Boulevard. I don't know whether this one's on your radar too much, but essentially this corridor is going to be a new 14-mile corridor from Route 7 down to Prince William County line. Now, unfortunately, Prince William County.
This is our cargo problem right here.
Yeah.
This is bi-county, tri-county.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Any county.
Yeah.
Outer
Now
Beltway.
it's just Uni-County.
Yeah.
Best not to call it that,
Um,
because it brings up all the people that don't want it.
Oh, God.
But this is in the works, right? So I did include it here. It's at least within the county, it will be a good network connection. There are two main parts. Phase 1, which is from Evergreen Mills Road to Route 50, and then Phase 2, which is 50 to Tall Cedars Parkway. This Phase 1 is a design build project. We have a design builder out there working now. We are, where are they? They're about done with the design. They are in the middle. It's a design build project. They are actually tasked with doing the land acquisition, which is not a typical way to do it. We did it, evidently, it was a little bit before my time, but we did it because of pressures from a federal grant that we had, and we had to obligate something along those lines. So it's a little complicated. It's not ideal, but the design builder is acquiring right of way right now. I just mentioned that because if you follow the board's things, kind of activities, we will be actually seeking condemnation authority on a couple of the parcels coming up, just because it has taken so long for them to acquire. So that's in the coming months that will come to
So you
light.
can do that through a design build project?
Yeah, so basically anything with the design build, so like I said, it is not
Yes,
a usual practice, and it is risky.
Mhm.
In the case of when you do that, the owner takes on the cost risk. So for escalating costs for the land, which we have taken, the design builder typically takes on the schedule risk. So for the delays on processing and getting things through. And so the RFP for the design builder elaborated on that whole process and at what point it triggers our involvement. They have to try to, in good faith, negotiate with the landowners for at least 30 days, and then they can request us to condemn on their behalf.
Nice.
So it's all kind of articulated in the contract. And so, but it's a 2-month process for us to get board approval for that, or authorization to go down that path. We are starting that now. And they're aware of that, and the landowners are aware of that as well. So, let's see what else I mentioned. 10-foot wide shared use path on both sides of the road in this case, and a new bridge over Broadbent. So, time frame on this. Oh, here's a graphic here. And did I get an overhead? Did they give me an overhead here? Well, phase 2, I've got it. We actually have I thought they were going to include a drone shot in here. They're out there now clearing. So they cleared in advance of the northern long-eared bat clearing window.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that. That's a new
Uh-huh.
kind of development challenge right now. Northern long-eared bat was recently listed as an endangered species. And they have this life cycle where at certain times of year they are in the trees here locally. And so from April 1st to, I should know this, but I think it's November 15th, we cannot clear trees unless there's been a survey.
Jeez.
And so that just took effect April 1st. We did push to just get everything cleared that we could on all of our projects before April 1st took effect. So they did get the corridor cleared by then. So that's really where they are. They just cleared. They're doing some earth moving out there now. And we have some of the parcels, but not all of them. A lot of data centers building up now. And then phase 2 is in the construction phase as well, but it is a typical design build sort of project. Also has a shared use path on both sides. And there's phase 2. Oh, do I need to leave that there a little bit longer? It's hard to see sometimes when you're back. All right, then I included this one. This is Dulles West Boulevard, so it goes from North Star Boulevard to Arcola Boulevard. This one we're actually in land acquisition right now. Construction will start in 25. And so this will be another 4-lane roadway between North Star and Arcola. It's a continuation of Dulles West Boulevard from Dulles Landing Drive, which is being constructed by a developer right now. Let's see, what else did I have here that I wanted to mention? They proffered that. The section from North Star Boulevard, a part of this project, from North Star to Racefield Drive is actually being built by the design builder of that North Star project. So that's already also under construction. And then I included these, Rock Hill Bridge. So this is in Fairfax. It's actually Davis Drive Bridge, I think is what we're calling it. So VDOT, are you familiar with where this is? Or I don't think I have a map of this one. Yeah. So Fairfax, this is in Fairfax County. We shared the cost of a sort of preliminary study with them. VDOT recently completed a study that was just completed 2 or 3 weeks ago. Fairfax has received a $20 million NVTA funding amount and for project development and preliminary engineering, which they estimate will be another $6 million, and they have committed to that completing that funding amount for preliminary engineering. We are in discussions with them about whether we want to, go after funding in the 28-29 timeframe.
For actual construction.
For construction, right. There's kind of our interest is in making sure it connects into the Loudoun County side with the development that's actually going to be before our board in the coming month. In that location.
Are they still pushing it kind of, I think Ravana was trying to push it to
the farthest
move
east.
it more east.
Mm-hmm.
Are they being successful in that?
I would say we are still in discussions with them about where that connects.
Because I think the holdup would be Fairfax, but.
Yeah. So
the touchdown in Fairfax, if I recall, right
No,
now, that project is still.
Touchdown is on the west side of the CIT building, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So we're
Further.
so those same productive discussions that are restarting are talking about this as well.
Mm-hmm.
So active discussions, no real solution to share yet.
Because Ravana's moving for approval on the 18th board meeting.
Yeah, and that's rolling forward.
Right.
So this has to be resolved. Maybe not.
Well, it doesn't have to be resolved before then, but we just need to connect the dots with Fairfax.
But it does impact you. Back to Committee for Dulles, it's key to all the development just outside the gate and
Yep.
moving traffic through, because it's a mess. And you want people to access Silver Line, that's the innovation station. Otherwise, they're gonna be driven to the airport, taking away parking, which isn't an issue right now, but they'll be interrupting with, that and then stealing spots from the hotel. And
I don't think the bridge is a problem. I think that will be eventually connected. For Ravana, it's a matter of whether the road's on the east
Where
side of
is
CIT or on the west side. And they would rather split the two developments as opposed to split their development with it. But originally, when we approved it, it was all on the west side.
Well, is CIT coming down, or is that part of the?
My understanding it eventually will, but not anytime soon.
Yeah, not in the first phase.
Yeah.
And is it part of the Ravenna? Did they eventually acquire it?
Yeah, it's theirs.
Ravenna.
And so this is the one I included. This is, the airport overlay district. There have been changes recently approved. This is the one that I said, this is about my extent of knowledge of what this is, other than I think my group is actually funding the consultant that's working with Joe and his group on this, because he didn't have a on-call consultant he could tap into that had this sort of level of expertise, and we could reach him. So other than that, I'm not deeply involved in this issue. So I'll connect Joe with you all if that would be useful.
That's important to get that in there.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I had.
Okay. Go back to the Davis Drive and the Ravana and et cetera. I guess the big thing now, out of curiosity, is that Chair Randall, I don't know if any other boards have stated, but apparently the county's interested in talking to the commanders about putting a stadium out here. So we know the one good location, there potentially could be another location. I have, talking with the folks of Ravana and how they wanted to facilitate traffic in and out of their project, and the lack of willingness by Fairfax to share in that. I'm just curious, before Loudoun County gets down to the road and welcoming the stadium here, is anybody doing any kind of study to understand the traffic situation? Because the toll road and 28 will be a mess unless they're taking traffic off the toll road, which Ravana wanted originally to go through their project so that their people could get off the toll road, not have to get on 28 to go around to get into their project. So I'm just curious what we're thinking, because rail will help, but it won't
I
take
don't-
care of it all.
I don't have, a good point. I don't have any answers for you now, but
Okay.
I'll check with my staff. But this is not, so this one I feel like was sucking a lot of energy out like last year. But they've been working through processes, and so I'm not
Yeah.
deeply knowledgeable about that one. So, but we'll get back to you with some information on that.
Yeah, not speaking as executive director, because we have not had that discussion, but as Scott York, I don't have a problem with the stadium being here, as long as they can figure out the traffic situation at the toll road and at 28.
Oh, Scott, it's only 10 games a year.
Which
Couple
will turn
rock
into some
concerts.
concerts and other things. I mean, you gotta pay for the stadium, so you gotta use it.
Well, when you look at that Loudoun newspaper and see the poll, that, what was it, 60% were on the way opposed to it, and 10% more were really opposed to it. I mean, let the damn team go somewhere else.
I wonder how much of that is because of the current owner.
Well, Danny Snyder killed it. I mean, I waited 25 years for season tickets, and I had them for 25 years, and I finally got rid of them last year out of my contract, and I'll never touch them again.
I got rid of them in 2012.
Yeah.
Oh,
God, and Danny Snyder just killed the franchise.
When we moved to the area in '72, my father applied for season tickets. He got a letter the year he passed away saying he was now
Yeah.
eligible to buy them.
When we came here in '77, I was 300,000 on the list.
Wow.
This is crazy.
And my dad had 3 of them in RFK, and then they moved him to the new stadium, and they screwed him on the tickets. They took him from the 50-yard line right behind the Redskins, and they put him up in the corner.
Oh, no.
And when he went to complain about it, the guy says, "Hey, Mac, we got 100,000 people on the waiting list. Take it or leave it."
Mm.
And then he left. A lot of people left, and that's when I got him when they moved to the new stadium.
Mm.
But it was
So I'm trying.
pathetic. But that really is, that Ravana thing is, that gets going. That's going to have a major impact there. And that flyover road into the south where Amazon Oil Services is going to be something.
I'm just trying.
Any other projects that are in and around the Dulles area or would impact traffic coming into Dulles, maybe further away? Like, as reference, the Prince William County Parkway, is nothing moving on.
No.
How about the Merlin Bridge over into Montgomery County?
Yeah.
Is that at the end of 28?
Yeah.
I've been trying to talk Phyllis into standing out in the middle of the river where you can at Loudoun and say, "Where's my bridge?" But she won't do it.
Well, speaking as Nancy Boyd and not in my position at DTCI in Loudoun County, just so you're aware, when I was in the private sector, I was marketed as a specialist in bi-state bridge design. Yeah, because I have worked on 3 major bi-state bridges, one between Washington and Oregon, one, which is still, trying to get going. One that was in the very conceptual stages between Long Island and Connecticut. And then the other one was just
Wow.
completed between Maryland and Virginia, the new nice bridge,
Yeah.
Yes,
Mac Middleton
yeah.
Bridge. So I was
You were involved in that one.
I was part of the general engineering consultant team, and I was WSP's project manager for that bridge before I joined the county.
And the one from Connecticut to Long Island would be a huge relief instead of having to take the ferry all the time.
So that one was really interesting. That came out of a fishing trip that the governor of New York and the governor of Connecticut took, where they remembered that at one point our company had done, or before my time with the company, that WSP had done an early planning study, kind of feasibility on that connection. And they said, we should take that a little bit further. And so they got us looking at, we actually had a very good team of some of the best analysts for tolling and, all of that, and really came to the conclusion that that is one of the most viable tolling facilities that you could build in the world because of the freight traffic that would be expected to take that route. So we analyzed the whole eastern seaboard, origins and destinations, and did a really good study. And of course, the governor, this was 3 years ago, the governor got a little distracted. New York got a little distracted.
You're kidding.
And then we never actually briefed him on the results of that study. But it is really one of the most viable toll. It would be a 19-mile long bridge tunnel connection.
Wow.
We did feasibility on all of that. It could almost pay for itself. It would be a $50-some billion project that would almost pay for itself.
And where exactly?
Would they
Stanford.
touch them?
Mid island across to like Bridgeport.
Bridgeport.
Okay.
Yeah. Not downtown Bridgeport, but that vicinity. We had 3 different locations, but that was probably
Because
the
right
most
now to get
viable.
out from the east end of Long Island, take 2 ferries to get over, and it is a bear.
Yeah.
And expensive.
Not from this world.
Yeah.
So my question may be dumb. Could that kind of study be done for this bridge from Maryland to Virginia, given the cargo situation that we talk about from Dulles all the time?
Yeah, so I think the problem isn't necessarily need. The problem is, I think, Maryland.
Okay.
I've talked with 2 former secretaries of transportation in Maryland, this is prior to my current role, about that. And both said, actually one was the current one at the time, both said that will go nowhere. Dead stop. I don't know why. Will go nowhere.
I've always heard.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And is that because
Yeah.
of that portion of Maryland being further agricultural?
No, that's
in their
just
mind,
a
or
that's
That's
a red
a
herring.
Okay,
The
that's
original-
the way they say it. Okay.
Yeah.
As long as I've been, associated with Dulles from 77
Mhm.
on to 2005 and beyond, when Paul Whittefield was manager of BWI the first time,
Right.
we were always talking about it. And the issue there was that Maryland was worried, and that's part of our transfer from the federal government out,
Right.
was that Dulles and National stood on their own. BWI finances all the airports in Maryland for their revenue. So they didn't want anything to happen to that. So they were afraid of the drain going to Dulles.
Okay.
Nowadays, they still use that, some of the older ones, but the new drain is that the Port of Virginia, natural deep water port, and the Panamanian freighters coming through, right now it takes an additional 4 to 5 days for a freighter to get into Maryland, up to Baltimore.
Right.
And so what they're really afraid of is any connections that smooth the process down to 95 that could take stuff out of the Midwest to come down and go to Virginia Port. I mean, we've got 2 rail lines down there, we've got major highways down there, and that's, if they if they have a bigger impact on the Baltimore port, that really sucks the money out of the airport, because that's all tied in with their financing scheme.
Okay.
And the rail, we've got people on my board that live in Maryland, develop over there, that have a pathway through it. And it's a typical thing that, and we're talking to, what's his name, the prior secretary before Paul, the big guy from Arizona.
Pete
Pete
Ron.
Ron. Pete Ron, we were talking with that, and the thing is, if you smoke people out, I mean, we've had relatives that they put an interstate through their farm, and they go holy bat, stuff over it. But then it's just like the group down there, the group on the Bi-County Parkway that just sold they family farms have to preserve it and everything else, and finally the dollar number got right and they jumped. So if you really love the farmland, you'll want underpasses to take your equipment back and forth and call it a day. But if you're really just holding out for the money, you want a 7-Eleven, a Wawa, and whatever on each corner. And it's just smoke. But the main thing is the port and what Virginia offers, the economic thing, because just like the bridge, there's a huge draw. Keith's editorial, Maryland, and my in-laws were in Potomac. Maryland sold their soul to the federal government on the 270 corridor.
Right.
And that doesn't generate any taxes. It's all federal government land, so no taxes. So, and then Maryland and their politics just soak the hell out of the people on taxes. So the companies come to Virginia. And that brain drain that they have from Montgomery County over is another thing that is just killing Montgomery County. And they just have a horrible time financing it. So
Right.
between all those things,
They're just
but
not
it's
gonna
going to
talk.
be, Pete Ron was, I think he was the most realistic. And Paul, every time I see him, I bug him and he smiles. And, you know, he can't say much now in his position there, but he definitely is in favor of a bridge, you know, on the side he was before. But Pete Ron said, once we get pregnant with the American Legion Bridge, then the numbers, once it's under construction, the numbers are just going to show that it's, what, a Category F road before, and it's a Category F minus after, that they're going to have to do something. And that's going to force the issue. But, you know, right now, I mean, Maryland, and you know far better than I do, but the last discussion, when Transurban backed out of it, Maryland can't finance improvements on the Beltway right now because they don't have enough money to get federal highway money. So without Transurban's cash infusion, 495 is just going to keep deteriorating because they can't afford to fix it. And that's where Transurban's cash would make the balance sheet go up, and then they could do those improvements.
So I was thinking, because that happened, they would have to think about another bridge, because that bridge is just unpassable, even right now with hybrid work.
Well, we go over to church every Sunday that way, and Beth keeps telling me, just get, because our mother was in assisted living and that, and going over every day, get in the right lane, turn the radio on key, and just chill. And I'm out there going like this, and she says, Keith, she says, look at that car, you know, look at that car, just get in the right lane and chill.
Well, we can't get employees over there.
No,
I mean,
You can't.
we don't take projects over there a lot of times because we know we can't satisfy and get enough people to get across that bridge.
a funny story, Jerry Gordon, when he was head of Fairfax Economic Development, had a major corporation come in, and they were meeting in Virginia, and then they're meeting Fairfax, and they're going over to meet Montgomery County. So in the morning, they arrived at Dulles in huge fanfare, and we got him with Jerry and went down to Tyson's for the meeting and stuff, and they did that. And the guy says, well, how do I get over to Montgomery County? And Jerry just reached in his pocket and gave him his keys. He says, take care, come back, I'll drive you to the airport. And he came back after that, he says, I will never do that again.
That's what everybody
Jerry didn't
says.
have to say a word.
Right.
Just let him try to navigate the path.
Well, I kind of feel like that if there's ever a solution there, it's going to start with not talking about regular car commuter traffic. It's going to be centered on freight and bike ped. So non-highway, start the discussion with a non-highway solution, and then see where it goes from there. That might be the only way to open up a conversation.
You come down 15 every day?
I do, and I like that. It's pretty dry. It's slow, but it's pretty.
It's slow.
Well, but that's the other one, can we expand that? Is there any possibility to make that available for trucks?
Well, so we do have plans in the county to make improvements on Route 15 north up to the county line. So there's a series of improvements. It does not include 4-laning it all the way. It goes up to Luckett's with 4 lanes, and then it's just 2 lanes with a median separation north of Luckett's to the bridge. Maryland owns the bridge, so there need to be that discussion about
You
what
got
to
those
do there.
little towns to go through, Luckett's and the rest that are.
Yeah, our plans for 15 north, so
bypasses.
includes the bypass.
Yeah.
So we do have that in our plan.
Do you have any insights? It's kind of related. White's Ferry dispute with Maryland buying them. It's
Yeah,
kind of a soap opera. It's more.
it is.
It's just keeping on tabs what's actually
Good for
going
you.
on.
Yeah.
Was it 20 cars and 10
I
cars
don't.
and
I
ferry?
don't have any. I talk with Rockland Farms frequently, but we avoid that topic because we have to have a productive discussion on
Yeah.
Route 15 stuff. So.
Is it Route 15 in design or past that?
So we have a series of projects, and so we have some that we have the southern end kind of down by Whites Ferry Road and south toward Leesburg. That's about almost done with design, and we're nearing right-of-way acquisition phase. And so as it kind of rolls north, and then there's some intersection improvements at Spinks Ferry Road.
Right.
And then actually we'll be doing like a left turn lane at the Lovettsville Road right before the bridge,
Oh, right.
which will, I think, really
That
help.
will help, right.
So there's some spot improvements we have planned.
So I'm curious, about 10 years ago, the board, with the help of Eugene and I, managed to get money in the CIP to do the new station for Sterling. So,
The fire station?
yep.
Yep.
So when is that sucker opening up?
All right, well, we're having contractor issues with that one.
Oh,
We
the
are-
county doesn't with the other projects.
In particular with this one, we have things happening this week with that contractor.
Mm.
Our goal is to get them in there this fall, to get them moved in this fall. There's things that we might need to get rid of that contractor and bring in someone else to finish it, but we're close. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
As
but
much as you can say.
Yeah, well,
says
we
a
haven't
lot.
gotten rid of that
Yeah.
contractor
Well,
yet, but.
it took such a long time to even get the construction, and then now it just seems to be like the shopping center off of West Church Road, just taking forever to get done.
We think it's been taking forever too. The contractors have been having issues with their subs just not showing up at all. And then, of course, they've had everybody has changed over since they've started. So everybody who's been working on it has changed over, including their company leadership. So.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Wow.
That's what a lot of individual, small residential projects constantly have
Yeah.
problems with that.
Well,
the whole
subs not
industry is
showing
having
up.
an issue.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, the
and
whole
that's-
industry is, you know, part why? Because we kept telling our kids they needed to go to college. And now the kids that went to college can't get a decent job, and a lot of them are getting laid off when we don't have enough people with the skills to be able to fill the positions that we need to construct the facilities we need.
Yes.
Well, there
And
finally,
technical schools,
there've
They've all
been
got majors
some
that can't get
movement
hired.
toward trades,
Yeah.
promoting that. But,
Yeah.
that takes time,
Mhm.
pipeline.
Let me,
10 years.
Joe Corroth, when he came down to Loudoun, I thought that was a breath of fresh air, the way he looked at the road designs. And when first week here, we got him, and he just was mapping the whole thing, and just wonderful new look at everything was going east-west, and he wanted to get some north-south. How is it now when he's sitting there in the chair he's sitting in now with you sitting there? I mean,
He misses
is he looking
misses
over
being a
your shoulder
director.
all the time?
No, he's great.
I can imagine.
Yeah, no, he's a great resource, and I just as soon have him back as director. And he'd probably just as soon be back director.
I'm sure with some of the projects he's
Good
getting.
job.
The noise thing at Dulles really is critical. I mean, that fifth runway, we are a one runway airport so many times with northwest winds. And the whole time I was at Dulles, I fought for the fourth runway to be that one, the east-west one, because of the development up north and south was done. And the politics of going northwest was going to be miserable when you're building $1 million houses on quarter-acre lots. Those people scream. And Birchwood is a classic example. I mean, over 55 development. They moved in 2020 during the pandemic, and now they're bitching about noise. And the county, I just wish Mike Turner would get some backbone and deal with it. But this pandering to him is not helping.
No, it's not. It's gonna make the situation worse.
It really is.
So I told somebody, I said, you guys just need to build the fifth runway.
Yep.
Get it done.
Well, it was a little bit more expensive because of the hills and excavation to flatten it out. And the FAA wasn't any help because they said it was, I think, less than 5% they'd use the north-south one more. Well, they don't, because the airlines don't make any money taxiing.
Yeah.
And they aren't taxiing all the way over to that far west. It's a parking lot for the inauguration. And when the other one goes down for maintenance, they use it. Outside of that, it just sits there empty. But it's just, it's a real pisser that thing isn't built. and it's gonna be a fight. I mean, the problem we're having in Fairfax County, Kathy Smith has got us locked up on even adopting the noise contours in Sully. And won't even
So
let the
short
board
sighted.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's short-sighted, but the developers, they got deep pockets and they can fund
That's
the
it.
local supervisors.
Yeah.
The
I
developers,
know.
all that commercial construction down there is all that one-story flat stuff, and they can't rent it. Nobody's gonna take it. They don't want that. They want live, work, play. 2/2s and all that. And you don't have it down there, and so they're putting the heavy pressure on Kathy, and the other members of the Fairfax board aren't going to go against her. It's her district, so they're sitting there quiet.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
Yep.
And I can say that as having served on the Board of Supervisors. Yes, you're there as a district supervisor, but you're there to oversee the entire county as well.
I would say there's a difference between the way Sharon ran the board and the way Jeff runs it.
You know. So,
It's the same way, Scott, you orchestrated the vote, for the silver line. If that would have been left to just happenstance, it probably would have lost.
you probably would have.
The way you orchestrated the vote, you put the supervisor in a position he couldn't do anything but vote for it.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason we got the silver line.
So,
I don't want to give too many compliments. We'll have to expand the door
Yeah.
to get them out.
I'm already big enough.
I know.
I mean,
Just one other question, just based on transportation. What is the usage on the Silver Line right now? I mean, with the ridership? I know they're.
I haven't seen the gross numbers.
I haven't
Dulles
seen it
is a
either.
major station. We get a lot of it. We really do.
I figured that would,
It's the
Once
biggest,
it
the
opens,
biggest station.
yeah.
now that parking's gotten so expensive too.
I parked in garage one and walked through, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the amount of people that were
Yeah.
purchasing tickets.
I was too.
On and off.
They really.
But then if we go
So-
further out, I mean, I'm not sure the other stations,
Well, further out's going to take a little time
it will.
because you need the type of development out there around it.
Right.
So have you guys seen anything out of WMATA for the first quarter?
I have not
For
seen
particularly Ashburn, because that had some locals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people trying to get into Tyson's and
Right.
Reston. I mean, there's a
Whatever.
pretty big
Yeah.
People
work
do it,
group.
see a lot of that kind of sort of a novelty thing. Let's go try it and that. But I mean, it still takes over an hour to get to Union Station,
Right.
with all the stops.
Right.
And,
So that's-
and when you see the cars going faster than you,
Oh.
Because it's not that convenient,
No.
Right.
but you do save a lot of money
But I think it's
compared
convenient.
to Uber, Lyft, or other alternatives.
But I think it's convenient for people to get, and I mean, not that you want to send people out of the county, but if they're working in the Reston area,
Mhm.
we can get people up that way versus having to pay to get on the Dulles tollway, the toll roads.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be where I see people wanting to go from Ashburn up there, maybe to Tyson's, but
Yeah.
that's the ride I'm seeing people take. But then this is
I-
observation, this is not.
No, I
Right.
agree with you. That's what I hear too, is that a lot of Tyson's is that sort of commuter connection to Tyson's
Yes.
is what this is really doing.
Mm.
But then the international passengers are really loading. I mean, they are really,
Mhm,
they're used to it. They're,
right.
Yes,
but,
that's the other
I mean,
thing.
like Frankfurt, you've got everything right in the same building, and
have you ever tried parking down in a parking lot in front of the airport at 3 o'clock on?
oh
Oh,
god,
I did it the other day. All that 4-lane road now turns into 2-lane because everybody's parking where they shouldn't, but that's because there's no spaces left. So it's interesting.
You mean to
traffic is
pick
back.
up somebody at the airport, park and pick up?
No, I went over there, had an event to attend out at Gate 826 to when they were welcoming Clay.
yeah,
Couldn't park down there. I finally just had to leave, tell the lady at the booth I couldn't find a space, get me out of here, and I went over to the garage 2 to find a space.
Mhm.
So, but it's but what dumbfounds me a little bit is that we're not totally back to the numbers we were pre-COVID.
Mhm.
We're getting close, but the parking has just gotten so much worse than what
Yes.
it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So,
It's,
Do you think it's longer someone I was talking to was saying it was longer trips because people are doing work leisure trips
Yeah,
versus
leisure. Yeah.
versus when I would just do a day trip
Yeah.
to go. Most people are going and then they're staying for a couple days because they can work remotely.
right, it's like I take the commuter bus a lot, and federal workers are still at home,
Yes.
but the traffic is horrible.
Oh, it's killing Lamar
Okay.
right there.
And it's, and I can't connect the dots. What if the federal workers come back? You know,
Right.
what's our situation?
So I think some of the studies are based, they're looking backwards and saying this is what we used to have, and we're trying to compare sort of apples and oranges. I think that people need to put some asterisks in there. This is how we're working now compared to this is how we were working back
Well, you
then.
see it in your business. I mean, trying to get
Yeah.
people to go to work and go to an office.
Right. I mean,
DC is dying with all the vacant, and
Yeah.
everybody wants a short-term lease with millions of dollars worth of retrofits,
yes.
so they aren't leasing.
Well,
And
commercial
it's-
leasing is just so way off, and a lot of our,
Mm-hmm.
in Virginia, a lot of our revenues are
Yeah.
based on leases.
And DC is just horrible. They have wicked
Commercial.
I mean, DC has so much government. Here in Virginia, most of my customers are having, when their leases are coming up, they're going with 50%. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
a year and a half away. But most of my employees, you know, it's a 2 or 3 day a week max that we're getting them in there.
Yep.
And they have expertise and I can't replace that. And then we have a whole group of recruiters and people that can work remote. We work them remote 5 days a week and we're requiring them to come in for training once a month.
The inmates are running the asylum.
I think it goes back to when someone's been given a privilege,
school.
you can't take it back.
It's very,
Anything that happens over a year, it's like taking it away from somebody.
they got
Yeah, that's just something.
life
Nancy,
patterns.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.